Thank you to our guest hostess, Tal, for monitoring and hosting and recording today's session. So I want to, we're about to enter Yom Yerushalayim, and there's a lot to say about Yerushalayim. Initially, as you know, the title I gave to this year is Real or Surreal, and there is a lot to say about that. The idea of Yerushalayim not only being an idea. For many centuries, Yerushalayim was an idea or an ideal, because 2,000 years, people said, well, what hope do we ever have to go back to Yerushalayim? Even if we prayed for it and we had emunah, but still in our heart of hearts, we're thinking, well, it's never been done before. The Irish left in great numbers from Ireland, and, they didn't come back and, return to their ancestral homeland as a people. They stayed wherever they came to, mostly to America. People would say in different countries, without going into too deeply, along the Rhine, the famous and infamous statement that those Jews made just before the crusade, or not just before, but the years they were living there, even when they were urged to come back to the rebuilding of the Beit HaMikdash, and they said, you go to your big Yerushalayim and we'll stay in our little Yerushalayim. And some people even wanted to call Berlin the New Jerusalem. So for some people, and of course we see that the icon or the idea of Yerushalayim is used, it's in many songs, and it wouldn't necessarily relate or represent the real city of Yerushalayim. And of course, when we came back, we learned that it's not just an ideal, not just a dream, not just a concept, but it's actually a real city that we have returned to. So there is a lot to say about that, and also ask the question, why is Yerushalayim not mentioned even once by name in the Chumash? We have to wait till the Tanakh. And as I wrote in the Parsha sheet, in the 10th chapter of Yeshua, the first time that Yerushalayim is actually named. But because this is Yom Yerushalayim and it has a great emphasis on flags, including the very celebrated and controversial flag march that's taking place tonight in Yerushalayim, I wanted to spend some time talking about the flag of Israel, long may it wave, and go a little bit deeper into this concept of our flag. So you can see it hanging in the background, and I know we're all familiar with it. So I want to talk about its history and what it represents. So first of all, it's very apropos for this week's Parsha of Bamidbar, because there we also talk about flags. We talk about the representation of the 12 tribes of Israel through their flags. I'm going to move this for a second, just so you can see this. If you can see in the background, there's a picture that has the 12 tribes and their flags and their colors. It's done because my son's bar mitzvah is Bamidbar. So that was specially done. It's a beautiful idea of representing the colors, in royal families, and you saw in the coronation, they bring out the colors, so to speak. And we have that as well, with a different insignia and set of colors for each of the Shvatim. So we need a flag. It's something that we're not the first ones to have it, by the way. This goes back, we don't know how far back. It may be that the cavemen had their own, and women, of course, had their own flags, maybe with a picture of a, Tyrannosaurus Rex on it, or whatever it was. People have always very much flocked to this idea and were enamored with the idea of a flag, because, it unites a nation. We come under one flag. When I lived in Dallas, in Texas, so we have 6 flags over Texas, the amusement parks, because Texas at one time or another they lived under 6 different flags: Spain and Mexico, America, the Confederacy, their own flag, etc. So flags are important, and we deserve to have our own flag. And indeed, we do. Where does it come from? Well, first of all, it dates back into the 1800s, and there were a lot of different designs. Once the Zionist movement started in earnest, people felt we have to have a flag. We have to have an insignia. It's going to be something that will unite us and will publicize our cause. And there were many different ideas of what we should put into our flag. Herzl, it's interesting, and we talked about this, Herzl was wonderful and did great things, but he was often outvoted on some of the ideas that he had. And one of them was about what he thought the flag should be. He wanted it to be a white flag because he felt that white symbolizes not just purity, but a new beginning. That's why, we wear white on Yom Kippur when we want to start the year with a clean slate. And he felt, well, we're starting new with bringing our country back to life. But he didn't want any religious symbols within it. Herzl had an idea. He liked stars. So that is something similar to what we have. But he said he wanted to have 7 golden stars. What did they represent? For him, he said they represented the 7 golden hours of our working day, that we should all be working 7 hours a day, a little bit socialist perhaps. And hang on. Yes, right. Tal is indicating, yes, we use the flags when we marched and at Har Sinai, but also when we marched through the desert. And so let's get back to Herzl, who said, that seems like a good thing to put in our flag. Stars, don't forget, America was already a country and they have stars, and many of the other countries had stars. So he wanted stars as well. However, at the Zionist Congress stood up an individual named David Wolfson, who was a very fervent Zionist. And he said, not only that, he was also religious, he was Dati. And he said, no, I don't like Herzl's suggestion because this is a Jewish state. There has to be something Jewish in the flag. So what did he do? He said at this first Zionist Congress in Basel in 1897, he pulls out his talit and he says to the assembled representatives, he said, guess what? We already have a flag. And he opens up his talit and he says, here it is. It's blue and white. That apparently was what his talit was, because we know that traditionally talit will be either blue, or it'll be white with black stripes or white with blue stripes. And many talitot are blue. And we'll get to that in a moment. So he pulls out his talit and he says, we have a talit. This is known to all of us already as a symbol of Judaism, as a symbol of prayer and praying to God, thanking God. And he unrolled it in front of everybody and he said, let the nations see this flag and it will represent this new Jewish state. And he said, in addition to being blue and white, we have to put a symbol on there. And so we'll put the Magen David. And essentially, and he got a standing ovation, as the story is told. And that is how the essence of the national flag came into being. But it was not without even more controversy, because that was in the late 1800s. And when Israel did finally become a state, so Israel debated about what to do about the official flag of the state of Israel. And it was Moshe Sharet, who would become the second prime minister, who, before he became prime minister, he considered abandoning the traditional design of the Zionist flag, and he wanted to create something completely different. And his reasoning for that was, he said, Jews all over the world are going to be, we want Jews all over the world to be pro-Zionist, whether they come to Israel or don't. And he was afraid that if they start flying this flag that's partisan for Israel, then it will create this sense of dual loyalty in different countries. And this could and would be dangerous in many of those countries, flying a flag of a foreign country. However, as the story goes, the Zionist representatives from around the world reported back and said, don't worry, it's going to be okay. We checked with our governments and nobody's going to have an objection to this. And on October 14th, 1948, the flag of the Zionist organization was adopted as the official flag of the state of Israel, although it had been used already for many years. But now, after this initial concern about flying another flag, and by the way, it is something that still exists to this day, this charge of dual loyalty, and therefore people were afraid, well, why am I flying, another flag? And that's why you will always see in any shul that flies in a foreign country that flies the Israeli flag will also fly the flag of that country and higher. In America, the American flag must be a bit higher than any other flag that's being used. Well, as I said, there was a lot of discussion what should go into the flag. We know what eventually came out, but some other people had different opinions. For example, some wanted to say that our flag should represent the Lion of Yehuda. Indeed, there are those who want to say that the colors of blue and white were the colors of Yehuda. And since we're using the colors of Yehuda, and the majority of Jews today come from Shevet Yehuda, let's put in a lion. Instead of the Magen David, let's have a lion in the middle. Well, that, of course, was rejected. However, as a concession, they said, okay, we won't put a lion in the national flag, but we will put it where? In the flag of Yerushalayim. So at least it was that pacified those people who wanted the lion. You'll get the lion, but it will be restricted and used for Yerushalayim. Then there were other people that said, well, what about Herzl's golden stars? That was maybe a nice idea. And out of deference to Herzl, they said, we won't use it for our national flag, but we will use it on some of the cities. Most prominently, Tel Aviv and Herzliya have stars within it. And then there was the religious establishment. They said, well, if it's a Jewish state, we like the Magen David, that's fine, that's great, but we'd rather have the Luchot. Why not have our national flag with the Luchot? And so the government voted no. However, again, as a concession, the Luchot became the symbol of the Rabbanut. So when the Rabbanut has an official logo, it has the Luchot. It didn't go in the flag, but it was a part of the government anyway. The decision was, by the way, they had to decide everything. How big should the flag be? So they decided the same size as the American flag. And obviously the flags come in different shapes, but the official flag is the exact same size as the American flag. The largest known flag of the state of Israel was actually made in 2007, and it captured the Guinness Book of World Records largest flag ever made. It was unveiled at an airfield near Masada, and it was manufactured in the Philippines, and it measured 660 by 100 meters, or 2,170 feet by 330 feet, and it weighed 5 tons. And as I said, it broke the previous record for the world's biggest flag, and it was made actually by an evangelical Filipino who loved Israel, and he wanted to do something special for Israel. So he, I guess, endowed it and had it made in the Philippines as both a religious token and a diplomatic gesture of support for Israel. And by the way, it has since been surpassed. So of course, once it was done, then other people wanted to find a way to do their own. So, and so I don't know what happened to that flag actually, but I'm not sure there's a flagpole. Although when you go to Eilat, you also will see a gigantic flag of Jordan across the Gulf of Eilat. So we said before that the flag of Israel is meant to simulate a talit. The blue, the sky, the white we said stands for starting a new pure state. The blue would stand for the sky. And some want to also say that the blue represents Techelet. Now, I know Tzvi is here. It's not necessarily the authentic color of Techelet, but the idea was that by having blue in the flag, that will send home the message that this is connected to a talit, which is indeed a Jewish symbol. Others want to say that the white was meant to represent perhaps the white robe of the Kohen Gadol. I think that's a little bit of a stretch, but some people talked about that. And just in general, they like the combination of the blue and the white. As far as the Magen David, that's a very mystical and somewhat controversial symbol. The Gemara does say, there's a Gemara in Pesachim that says that this was on the shield of, this was on the shield of the soldiers who went to fight. I see there's something else on the screen. Hold on, let me try to put my screen back. Wait a second. Okay, I hope you're all seeing. I'm getting some other thing on the screen here, which I don't remember. Rochelle Gossett, if you're there, remove whatever you're putting on the screen because you're blocking my screen. But let me go on. So the Magen David does have this long history of representing the flag, the shield of David HaMelech when they conquered Yerushalayim, and it is named, and that certainly has merit. On the other hand, there are a lot of other mystical applications to the Magen David. First of all, it consists of 2 arrows.
Wait a second, just do a stop share screen.
Yes.
Whoever's doing it, stop the share
Rochelle
screen.
Gossett, please
Down on the
stop
bottom.
sharing the screen. Okay, thank you. So we're back. So the Magen David is kind of 2 arrows, one pointing up and one pointing down. So representing the idea of the heaven and the earth coming together in this fulfillment of the biblical promise to return us to Israel. The 6 points may also represent the 6 days of the week, with Shabbat being represented by the inner space. The 12 lines that make up the circumference of the Jewish star. So if you count the small lines, each line of the Magen David, so that would represent the 12 Shvatim, the 12 tribes of Israel. So all in all, there's a lot of things going on in the Magen David. And obviously we accept it as a beautiful symbol, and it does go back a long time. And since David is the one who conquered Yerushalayim, it seemed most appropriate that he is represented somehow on this flag. Now, there's, again, I mentioned there's controversy about it. There were those and are those within the Arab world, and this was a claim made by Yasser Arafat, Yamach Shemo, and Hamas claimed that the 2 blue stripes that you see on the flag represent the Nile and Euphrates rivers, and allege that Israel therefore desires to eventually seize all land between the Nile and the Euphrates. Indeed, in the covenant of Hamas, it states explicitly After Palestine, the Zionists aspired to expand from the Nile to the Euphrates. Not a terrible idea, but don't quote me here. And in 2006, the leader of Hamas, Mahmoud al-Zahar, issued a demand for Israel to change its flag, but obviously we did not do so. But I should mention at the same time that in the Haredi world, there also was objection to the flag. Rav Yoel Teitelbaum, the Satmar Rebbe, referred to the flag as a flag of heresy, even going so far as to say it's avodah zarah. It's as if people are worshiping that. Of course, he was very extreme in his rejection of Israel. And therefore, even today, despite the legal requirement since 1997 for all government-funded schools to fly the Israeli flag, you will find in many, if not most of the Haredi schools, it's in violation of the law, in spite of the fact that they do receive a tremendous amount of money, and even more if you know what's coming. Nevertheless, in most of those schools, there is no Israeli flag flying. I can tell you that some people are so extreme vis-a-vis the flag or even the Magen David that they don't allow books in their house that have a Magen David. That's true. I unfortunately found that out from some people. So you see the two sides in a sense. However, I'd like to say that one of the great exceptions to the rule is that, and many of you know this, the Panovitz Yeshiva in Bnei Brak flies the Israeli flag on Yom HaAtzmaut, because the Rosh Yeshiva of Panovitz, when he was in the Holocaust, he made a neder, a shavua. He said, if I will survive and I will come to a Jewish state, he said, I will fly the flag of Israel. I mean, of course, there was a lot of talk even before the Holocaust. And as we said, the Zionist movement in the 1800s was already established. And so a lot of the victims of the Holocaust and the people in the Holocaust dreamed and hoped that they would come to that state and be free. And he made that shavua, that neder. And so to this day, it is kept at least once a year, flying the Israeli flag in front of the Panovitz Yeshiva. National flags can serve as a kind of Rorschach test. Two people can see the same piece of fabric and walk away with very different and opposed interpretations about what it represents. As we've been saying, some will be moved to tremendous gratitude for all the positives that the country has done. Others will feel a sense of disappointment for what it fails to provide. And I think one of the encouraging things for me is that in this national debate now raging, both sides are waving the flag. So hopefully both sides are dedicated to Israel, whatever form they wanted to take. At least they believe in the concept of the state of Israel, and therefore are both flying the flag. Rav Soloveitchik, interestingly enough, was asked, what do you think about the flag? Should it be in a shul? Should it be flown? And should it be an acceptable symbol for the religious community? And he said the following: if you ask me, how do I look upon the flag of the state of Israel? Does it have any halachic value? I would answer you very plainly. In the Shulchan Aruch, said the Rav, it says that one who has been killed by non-Jews is buried in his clothes so that his blood may be seen and avenged by others. In other words, he said, the clothes of the Jew acquire a certain sanctity when splattered with the blood of a martyr. And so he said, how much more is this so of the blue and white flag, which has been immersed in the blood of thousands of young Jews who fell in battle, defending the country and the population. It has a spark of Kedusha that flows from a great devotion and Mesirat Nefesh, self-sacrifice of so many. And therefore, he said, we are all obligated to honor the flag and treat it with respect because it has holiness and represents the best qualities of Am Yisrael. So he was pretty outspoken in favor of it. It was a speech he gave, I want to say, in 1957, if I'm correct. Rav Kook, of course, who was the chief rabbi of the Yishuv, not of the state of Israel, but before we became a state. So he suggested that the original flag of the Jewish people, or of Israel, Am Yisrael, B'nai Yisrael, began actually at Har Sinai with the giving of the Torah. And he said the Israeli flag, I quote, represents our march towards Geula and signifies the international unity behind the Zionist cause. When we left Egypt during the Exodus, the Torah states that we left Biyad Ramah, with an upraised arm. What is the meaning of Yad Ramah? And he quotes the Ramban, who said, the Jews left with flags. The outstretched arms mean that they were carrying flags. They left with song and celebration. And this may be the very first source for a flag used by Jews to identify our mission and celebrate our redemption. So he saw the flag as an extension of the Geula, the first Geula, when we left Egypt, and this final Geula when we came back to Israel. In 2018, to help mark Israel's 70th anniversary, 200,000 fans or admirers of the Jewish state around the world signed 5,000 Israeli flags. People from all walks of life, including children, cultural, spiritual figures, political figures, ordinary people, celebrities, wrote words of blessing and good wishes on the flags of these 5,000 flags in all different languages. And the project extended essentially across the globe: Europe, Asia, Africa, Australia, the Americas. It was a celebrated event. So, and these 5,000 signed Israeli flags were put into a time capsule in Givata Tachmoshet, in the Ammunition Hill in Yerushalayim, which of course was the site of heavy fighting during the War of Independence in 1948. And the plan is for Israelis to open the capsule in the year 2048 to celebrate Israel's 100th anniversary. We should all be there to see it. So those are a few words about the flag. It's more than just, it's not so simple. It's more than just, an opportunity to have a representative. It really does convey a lot of different ideas of a spiritual nature, of heaven and earth, of David HaMelech, of this idea of divine protection. At the same time, it puts us among the community of nations who have their own flag. And it's wonderful to see so many flags and people taking pride in our country. And in most of the countries where we came from, we were able and proudly put an Israeli flag next to the country flag of where we were, expressing not so much a sense of dual loyalty, but saying we are appreciative of the country where we live, but we represent that the Jewish people deserve a nation as well. And so the flag of Israel, I think, has become one of our most penetrating and important symbols. So I'll stop here. And if anybody has a question or comment, you can either write it in the chat or you can unmute yourself and you're free to ask.
Rabbi?
Yes, David.
Whilst you mentioned quite happily about Rabbi Teitelbaum, the Satmar Rebbe, not approving of the flag, and we know that would probably come from him, I don't know whether you missed out also Moshe Feinstein, regarded as a foolish and meaningless object. The Chazon Ish didn't like it, and the former chief rabbi of Israel, Sephardi rabbi, Ovadia Yosef, forbade the flying of the flag in synagogues because it was a reminder of the acts of the evildoers. It begs the question, what were these people thinking?
Right, you're correct. Rav Moshe basically took a stance that it was he calls it shtus, he says it's nishtahin and nishtaher. He says it's not a religious symbol in his opinion, but he says there's nothing wrong with having it in a shul. You don't have to say, I'm not, people saying, because they wrote him a question, said, am I allowed to daven in a shul that has an Israeli flag? He said, yes. He says, I consider that as having no unique symbolism one way or the other. And for him, that is a fairly extreme statement. I don't know. I mean, I really don't like when people say this, what I'm going to say. And that is, if Rav Moshe was alive today, would he be saying the same thing? He might, but he didn't he didn't say that he didn't say it was negative or positive. He just said it's really nothing. But as I say, Rav Soloveitchik differed with him and said, no, it's a very powerful symbol. And you have to show kavod for what it represents and the people it represents and the struggle and the sacrifices it represents. So to each his own. The Satmar would say what the Satmar would say. I don't know today what the actual minhag is in Sephardic shuls, whether they fly the flag of Israel or not, but certainly, we could check. We could do a little survey of Sephardic shuls to see if they have the flag there or not. But yes, you're quite right. There are different opinions there, and some of them are kind of unexpected. Any other comments? Okay, next week, we won't meet because, I want to say this. Tal is mentioning about the Warsaw Ghetto, that flying the flag of Israel was really an act of defiance, that was something which rallied the people to believe ultimately in the future of Am Yisrael, even in the Warsaw Ghetto. So thank you for mentioning that. Yes. Next week is Shavuot, so we will not meet, but we will be back, Bezrat Hashem, same time, same place in 2 weeks. And we will inform you and send out a reminder as well. Thanks to everybody for joining in. Chag Sameach and Am Yisrael Chai. Wave your flag very proudly.
Chag Sameach.